Hey guys, so as promised, here I'm gonna talk about the EDS conference and the little goodie bag and just things that I learned that day. I do want to also quickly mention that the EDS conference, because it was in Sydney first and then it came to Perth, so I just want to say all those people that wanted to look at the slides or get any information, they should be up on the Ehlers Danlos Society website. The slides, like the PowerPoints, should be up, hopefully, for anyone who wants like a full thing of like the information. However, I'm just going to talk about the notes that I wrote and my experience. I'm not going to talk about every single thing that I learned and wrote down, just because it's going to take forever, but I do want to mention some of the key points that I wrote down, or the notes that I made, maybe relevant to me. So I did take a little notebook with me yesterday, so I'll be going through some of the things that I wrote down, because I wrote quite 3 or 4 little note pages. But first I want to go through the little goodie bag that we got. We didn't get much in there. But it came in a little brown paper bag with the EDS, what does it say? Learning Conference Australia 2018, and it has like a little sticker on there. We got a brochure that says Western Kids Health, helping kids thrive. It says specialised paediatric health services, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, psychology, dietetics, and yoga therapy. And it's got like a little brochure about all those little headings, just all the different things. This is obviously more to do with pediatrics, children, but yeah, that's very interesting, because there was a lot of parents there that had younger children with Ehlers Danlos, so I thought that was really helpful. And obviously this is for like Western Australia, so if you guys are interested, I'm just gonna show you the little information at the bottom, and you guys can screenshot it and go look it up if that's relevant to you and you're in Western Australia. So we got a little brochure. We obviously got the program, which I'll go through in a second, and I'll just quickly go through and tell you what was on, and then you guys could go look up the people and the slides relevant to which doctor, etc. So I'll go through that in a second. I'll just go through the rest of the bag first. And the last thing we got in here was a little Aqualite hydration, what do you call this, leaflet, and it's got a 10% discount offer for friends of the Ehlers Danlos Society. So if you guys are interested in getting some of these, we got some samples, good old samples, and that's pretty much everything. Yeah, so if you guys are interested in getting these, which is very similar to Hydrolite, etc. So there's a berry flavour, what is this? I don't even know what flavour this is. I suppose it'd be like a lemon and lime or something like that. I can't find it. And I'm assuming this is like an orange one. So if you guys are interested in getting this would be super helpful for those of you that have pots. I'm excited to try this. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm definitely going to. But like I said, if you guys are interested in getting it, then you can use the code POTS for 10% off to receive 10% off on any related Aqualite product. So I'm just going to quickly go through the program. So registration was at 8 o'clock in the morning, or between 8 to 8:40. I think we got there, what time did Courtney and I get there? Probably like 8:20, I would say. Then it says Welcome to the Country by Dr. Susan Morris, and she just did like a little introduction, welcome. And then at 9 o'clock, on at 8:45, sorry, that was a 5-minute little thing. And then from 8:45 to 9, so for 15 minutes, Lara Bloom, who is, I can't remember if she's the founder, I can't remember exactly, but she's like one of the people that works for the society, and she's English because the society started in England. And she did a little what the 2017 criteria means for patients, and how did we get here and where are we going. So basically she just talked about like, the old like criteria, and then now the new criteria that came out last year, and just like how we got to this point basically. And then at 9 o'clock it was Understanding EDS by Professor David Silliance, probably pronouncing that wrong. And then at 9:30 it was, this is one of my favourite ones, and this is one of the ones that I wanted to know about. From 9:30 to 10:15 it was the hypermobility syndrome disorder versus hypermobile EDS. That was by Dr. Helen Cohen. And then 10:15 was Understanding and Managing Acute and Chronic Pain, again by Dr. Helen Cohen. She had like two talks back to back. Then we had a break. Then at 11:30 it was Dysautonomia and Fatigue Management by Dr. Jane Simmons. At 12 o'clock was Optimizing Participation and Quality of Life in Children with Hypermobility Syndrome Disorder and Hypermobile EDS by Dr. Verity Pacey and Nicole Pates. And then after that was it. This is the 12:30 was Partnering with Your School to Facilitate Positive Outcomes for Your Children by Jeanette Seeley, Robin Hickmer and Emily Bruning. And then we had lunch. Now the last two talks that I just mentioned were mostly to relate to like children with Ehlers Danlos and like parents and how to manage stuff and how to help, you know, cope them through school and all those kinds of things. So it was interesting, but again wasn't really relevant to me. But it was nice to see Robin Hickmer because I've seen her before for physiotherapy, so it was good. She mostly does like children, but I've seen her and she's brilliant because she knows a lot about like hypermobile and EDS, etc. Then it was How to Get the Most Benefit from Your Physiotherapy, Dr. Jane Simmons. And then at 2:30 was Mental Health Management by Dr. Vance Lockheed and Jacynthia Bell. 3 o'clock was Local Medical and Patient Panel, Navigating Local Healthcare Issues, Nikki Fortescue, Dr. Vance Lockheed and Jacynthia Bell. Now that was interesting because it was a panel with patients, or you know, parents of patients, etc. So that was really interesting to see like whatever questions we had, like their take on stuff, and like, you know, local areas and local doctors and stuff like that that could help. Then we had another break. Then at 4 o'clock was Gastrointestinal Issues and Nutrition in EDS by Dr. Heidi Collins. Now Dr. Heidi Collins was from America, and the thing, she actually had EDS herself, but the thing that kind of got me was it says gastrointestinal issues, but it barely meant, it only touched on gastroparesis and other things like that. It didn't, you know, I really wanted it to go more into, you know, gastro issues related to EDS, but it mostly talked about nutrition and kind of like the kind of diets people with gastroparesis should have, or things that are better for us to have. And then at 4:30 was Managing Everyday Life with EDS/HSD, which is the Hypermobility Syndrome Disorder, by Dr. Louise Tofts. And then 5 o'clock was the panel Q&A, so all the doctors that had spoken and professors and etc. that had spoken throughout the day all sat down at a panel at the end, and we just asked any questions we had and they answered them, etc. Now I'm just going to quickly go through the notes I wrote, because obviously some of it was what they had to say rather than what was on the slide. Apparently there is going to be a conference in 2019 about looking for a new gene, etc. And correct me, you know, feel free to correct me guys if I'm wrong or if I'm not giving the correct information, because you know, it's been a few days since the conference now. It's now Wednesday. I've kind of got a bit of brain fog. Not all my notes particularly make sense, so I've just written new gene 2019 conference. I don't really know what, you know, what that means, what I've written, but I do know wherever it is that they're doing a huge genome sequence or something. I can't remember the exact name for it, to look for the gene for EDS type 3. And they're also doing a lot of clinical trials and EDS research, and at the end there was an opportunity to sign up. So because it's going to be a global thing. It's not just an American thing, not just a UK thing. Like, there's going to be people from all over the world that have EDS that can go in for testing and go in for these clinical trials. So I signed up, so did Courtney, so we could possibly be contacted to take part in these clinical trials and, you know, etc., to try and find this gene. So that was really, really exciting. The next thing I've written down is there is a newsletter sign up to. I just wrote just newsletter sign up, and I think that was for the EDS Society, I think. Then I've written medical professional directory to tell my doctor about, because there is a medical thing that all the people who specialise in certain things can sign up to, so you can go onto it, or your doctors can go onto it and find specialists and etc. and other doctors that are interested in it or specialise in it or whatever it is. And then there is a global registry for EDS related disorders, and you can actually register yourself onto that, or your doctors can register you, etc. So I've put registrar next to that. Okay, so I've written here EDS versus HDS, you're valid. Now this is a point I wanted to talk about quickly, because a lot of people, when the new criteria for diagnosing EDS came out, a lot of people wouldn't, you know, undiagnosed, so they'd currently been diagnosed with EDS but they no longer meted the criteria. And I know a lot of people out there that still say they have EDS when you know, it's clear that they don't, and they don't meet the criteria anymore. It's just that they're scared if they say that they don't have it, that they won't be valid anymore, that it's not serious enough. And this was a point that they made in the conference. They said you could have someone with EDS who has minimal symptoms, works a full-time job and all that stuff, yet you can have someone with HDS, or HSD rather, who could be bedbound in a wheelchair, full-on intestinal failure, on TPN. And this is an example they gave, and they said, you know, yet they have hypermobility syndrome disorder and the other one has EDS. You know, it does not mean you are any less sicker, it does not mean you are not valid. It is just as serious as EDS, and people need to really realise that out there and kind of advocate that, because people have this thing in their head that HSD is not, you know, it's, if you have it, that means, you know, you're not valid. It's not a serious, like, oh, shut up, it's just HSD rather. But that's not the case at all. You could have that and just be as sick. You know, it's not a competition. People seem to think it is, but it's not. So I just wanted to mention that and just say, if you're out there and you have HSD, or you know you have HSD and you need, like, you've read the new criteria and you go, oh, I don't meet this, I have to, you know, I need to get re-diagnosed or undiagnosed or whatever it may be, don't be scared, do not be afraid. You are just as important, you are just as valid, and it is just as serious. So please go if you have not gone through the new criteria that came out last year, please do, because it's really important to get the right diagnosis. Yeah, just wanted to say that, so go do that if you haven't. What else? Morphine is super bad for Ehlers Danlos. It makes everything worse, so if you guys could switch to a different pain med, that would be great. If you're on morphine, I just wrote that down. Avoid diazepam. Another thing they talked about was doing a symptom diary. If you guys are switching medications, or you're trying a new medication, do a symptom diary. So start, day one, the symptoms you have, if things get worse being on it, if things get better, and then you can kind of track and go back and look at if it's gotten better, if it got worse then better, because that is a very handy thing to do. Apparently that's what I've written down. Tapentadol, which is what I'm on, is actually very, very similar to morphine, and yeah, apparently it's not the best to be on. I didn't think it was that bad because my doctors put it on me. I thought it was a better thing to be on than oxycodone, but apparently it's just as bad as morphine. So I'm going to talk to my doctor about possibly switching to something else that's not as harsh on the system. A couple of people asked about the relation between EDS and endometriosis, and also EDS and low potassium, which I thought was interesting. Not really much came from that, but I did write that down as my notes to look up, just to research it and do some home research on it, because you know, that's two things that I suffer with. Not in endometriosis, but I have got quite a lot of symptoms, but I haven't been diagnosed with anything. But it's definitely something that I keep meaning to bring up with my team. What else? The other thing I've written down here is about having low, you know, for example, low blood sugar or low potassium, and low anything really, or high anything. There's like a thing about people with EDS being really sensitive, so you could only have, you know, borderline low iron, yet you could be extremely symptomatic. And I thought that was interesting, because I get, you know, low blood sugars, low potassium, etc, and it might not even be that low sometimes. Sometimes it's extremely low, but sometimes it's just borderline, yet I'm extremely symptomatic. So I did think that was interesting, that that's an EDS thing that I never knew. And then they mentioned about a couple of applications. The first one I've written down is called Sleepia, like sleep IA, and that was developed in London, and apparently that's to help people with sleep issues, etc. They talked about doing, you know, small exercises, for example, like 2 10-minute walks a day, which is actually what my physio has told me to be doing. So I thought that was another thing I've written down. Subluxations and dislocations, to have a plan. So if you are at college, if you're at uni, if you're at school, if your children are at school, whatever it may be, dance class, whatever, have a dislocation / subluxation plan that your teachers, that your supervisors, whoever it may be, know about. So if something is to happen, that is the plan that you follow. And I thought that was very interesting, and also something I'm gonna do for when I start college again, for when I start work, for when all these things in life, I want to have that there. That's really going to be an important thing that I want to make sure, you know, I have no matter where I am. I've written a lot of notes just for me personally, to look up when I get home, etc. So the one thing I wrote about for the gastrointestinal issues and plus nutrition, that was the one by Dr. Heidi Collins. I've just written here, fibre can't be broken down, because a lot of my doctors have tried to push to have feeds with fibre in, to add extra fibre to things, and I just can't tolerate it. I just can't. It makes me so ill. And she explained the whole thing behind the fibre thing, but I've just written down that fibre cannot be broken down by people with compromised immune systems. So yeah, I wrote that down. And then the last thing I wrote was another app called Food Intolerances, and I thought that'd be interesting for some of you guys to use to try and work out what you're triggered by, like whether it's mast cell, whether it's GI symptoms, whatever it may be. It's called Food Intolerances, that one. And then she mentioned a few mast cell activation disorder stabilizers. One of them was Zantac, which I personally take, so I thought if you guys are interested, one's called Zantac, and the other one's called quercetin or quercetin. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure how you spell it, I just spelt it how I thought it was spelled. And for POTS, one of them talked about monitoring your vitals more often, and again doing like a diary, taking your blood pressure and heart rate multiple times a day for like a 2-week period, and just seeing the results. Then we talked about the possible correlation between dyslexia, dyspraxia, ADHD and autism with EDS. Apparently there's a higher rate of people having EDS if you have those illnesses or disorders. And then lastly, I've written down CBD oil and medical cannabis just to do some research about it, and there was a Dutch patient CBD oil paper written. I don't really know how the exact thing for that, but it might be on the slides if you guys want to go check those out, because apparently that was a really interesting thing to look at. And yeah, that is pretty much all the notes I've written. I wish there was more for you guys. I feel like I wasn't really helpful, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video anyway, and I will try and leave some links to things down in the description. If not, I'll just leave the EDS Society website, and hopefully the slides will be up there. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, please do give it a big thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this is what you were expecting. Sorry, I feel like it was a bit shitty, but yeah, I hope it gave you some information or something, I don't know. But I love you guys, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.